Now we discussed about how complex life is and how difficult it is to just arise spontaneously. The question is, do you think the complexity of life can be used as an argument which brings evidence for God? Not necessarily a proof, but like a hint that there should be a mind who orchestrates this. What do you think?
Well, it's certainly so. There's these people that talk about intelligent design, that these are so complex that it looks like design intelligence has been there. So if you're walking in the desert and you find a wristwatch in the desert, you could say, well, isn't that interesting? Over billions of years and millions and billions of years of sand blowing, that watch formed. You know, statistically, it's not statistically impossible. I mean, so that watch formed. Would you normally assume that formed just like that? No, your normal assumption would be, well, somebody was walking here before me and dropped their watch. That would be your normal assumption. So we all have ability to say, hey, there must have been some intelligence here at some point. We all share that understanding. So what people are trying to do is to move that and to quantitate that. At what point do we start seeing that there has been some intelligence to design this? So I understand their arguments. It's just that within chemistry, we don't yet have tools, we don't yet have instruments that detect that. So what people are trying to do is say, well, what are other inferences that we can make that would suggest that? That would suggest that there was an intelligence, not necessarily a God, but an intelligence behind it. That would be an argument. Now, once you have God, if God is someone that you accept, then it says that, yeah, my God could have made that. My God could have done that. Now, just remember, in 1952 or so, in the mid-1950s, when you got the structure of DNA, and so now we realized where information was stored. If you had asked somebody in 1900, or if you had asked your grandparents when they were children, where was life stored, or your great-grandparents when they were children, where was information stored? Where was the information stored? Why is it that when two people are tall, a man and a woman are tall, their offspring are generally tall? Why is that? Where was that information stored in a cell? Nobody knew. But then in the mid-1950s, we got the structure of DNA. So all of a sudden, now we know where that information is stored. It's stored in the genome, in the pattern in the DNA. It's stored in that genome. That doesn't now negate God. It just says that, hey, now we know where it was stored. But before that, we were clueless on that. We had no idea where the information was stored. So over time, we get more understanding. And then once we learn that, it doesn't make the person who believes in God say, oh, now I don't believe in God because now I know where the information was stored. No, the believer in God is just going to say, wow, so Lord, that is how you stored the information. We may come upon this in 500 years, Lord, so that's how cells assembled. That's how it was done. There is a materialistic explanation for how this was done. That doesn't negate God in any way. So it's very hard to say, just because we don't understand now, therefore God. As a scientist, I cannot do that. I know pastors do that, and that's fine. As a scientist, I cannot do that because I don't know what I don't know. I don't know what we're going to learn in 500 years or 1,000 years. I don't know where science will be at that time. So that's the problem with making that inference. But as far as a believer in Jesus Christ as the Son of God and his Father, I see God's hand over all of this. But I'm inferring God's hand. But God didn't write, the God of the Bible was here. He did not transcribe that directly into our DNA. I suppose he could have, but he didn't, as far as we know. Maybe at some point we'll be able to see that transcription. So it depends on your worldview. We can't exclude God. We can't definitively explain God, but we can infer God. But again, that depends on one's worldview. if one does not take the worldview of God, it still takes a lot of faith on how did this thing come together. As far as we know now, we have no materialistic explanation. That's what they would have to say.